So 250 years ago, right now, the revolution was well underway. The American Revolution had been started. The Continental Congress was meeting in this building, Independence Hall. And one thing I've been doing every day is just checking letters that the Founding Fathers wrote back and forth to each other. So I figured I'd check today and see if I find anything interesting and share it with you. I've got my laptop right here. So I'm gonna be looking down and checking for letters. Now, of course, first we have to check out Washington's diary entry for his weather report. So let's see what Washington's weather report was today. Lowering morning, but clear afterwards. Yeah? Okay, this is a good one. It's a resolution, not a letter. So let's read it. And it's quite long, so we'll do our best to get through it quickly. Virginia resolutions on Lord North's conciliatory proposal, 10th of June, 1775. Virginia resolutions on Lord North's conciliatory proposal. Resolved, that it is the opinion of this committee that an address be presented to His Excellency the Governor to inform him that we have taken into our consideration the joint address of the two Houses of Parliament, His Majesty's answer, and the resolution of the Commons, which His Lordship has pleased to lay before us. That wishing nothing so sincerely as the perpetual continuance of that brotherly love which we bear to our fellow subjects of Great Britain, and still continuing to hope and believe that they do not approve the measures which have so long oppressed their brethren in America, we were pleased to receive His Lordship's notification that a benevolent tender had at length been made by the British House of Commons towards bringing to a good end our unhappy disputes with the mother country. That next to the possession of liberty, we should consider such reconciliation the greatest of all human blessings. With these dispositions, we enter into consideration that resolution. We examined it minutely. We viewed it in every point of light in which we were able to place it, and with pain and disappointment we must ultimately declare it only changes the form of oppression without lightening its burden, that we cannot close with the terms of that resolution for these reasons. Okay. Well, next. Because the British Parliament has no right to intermeddle with the support of civil government in the colonies, for us, not for them, has government been instituted here. Agreeable to our ideas, provision has been made for such officers as we think necessary for the administration of public affairs, and we cannot conceive that any other legislature has a right to prescribe either the number or pecuniary appointments of our offices. As a proof that the claim of Parliament to interfere in the necessary provisions for support of civil government is novel and of a late date, we take leave to refer to an act of our Assembly passed so long since as the 32nd year of the reign of King Charles II, entitled, oh my gosh, that's quite a word, entitled an act for raising a public revenue and for the better support of the government of this His Majesty's colony of Virginia. This act we brought over by Lord Culpeper, then governor, under the Great Seal of England, and was enacted in the name of the King's most excellent Majesty by and with the consent of the General Assembly. Because to render perpetual our exemption from an unjust taxation, we must saddle ourselves with a perpetual tax adequate to the expectations and subject to the disposal of Parliament alone, whereas we have right to give our money as the Parliament does theirs, without coercion from time to time, as public exigencies may require. We conceive that we alone are the judges of the condition, circumstances, and situation of our people, as the Parliament are of theirs, It is not merely the mode of raising, but the freedom of granting our money for which we have contended. Without this, we possess no check on the royal prerogative, and what must be much lamented by dutiful and loyal subjects, we should be stripped of the only means as well of recommending this country to the favor of our most gracious sovereign, as of the strength those bands of amity with our fellow subjects which we would wish to remain indissoluble. Because on our undertaking to grant money as is proposed, the Commons only resolve to forbear levying pecuniary taxes on us, still leaving unrepealed their several acts passed for the purposes of restraining the trade and altering the form of government of the Eastern colonies, extending the boundaries and changing the government and religion of Quebec, enlarging the jurisdiction of the courts of admiralty, and taking from us the right of trial by jury, and transporting us into other countries to be tried for criminal offenses. Standing armies, too, are still to be kept among us, and the other numerous grievances of which ourselves and sister colonies, separately and by our representatives in General Congress, have so often complained, are still to continue without redress. Let's continue. Because at the very time of requiring from us grants of money, they are making disposition to invade us with large armaments by sea and land, which is a style of asking gifts not reconcilable to our freedom. They are also proceeding to a repetition of injury by passing acts of restraining and commerce and fisheries of the provinces of New England, and of prohibiting the trade of the other colonies with all parts of the world except the islands of Great Britain, Ireland, and the West Indies. This seems to bespeak no intention to discontinue the exercise of this usurped power over us in future. Because on our agreeing to contribute our proportion towards the common defense, they do not propose to lay open to us a free trade with all the world, whereas to us it appears that just those who bear equally the burdens of government should equally participate in its benefits, either be content with the monopoly of our trade, which brings greater loss to us and benefit to them than the amount of our proportional contributions to the common defense, or, if the latter be preferred, relinquish the former, and do not propose, by holding both, to exact from us double contributions. Yet we would remind government that on former emergencies, when called upon as a free people, however cramped by this monopoly in our resources of wealth, we have liberally contributed to the common defense. Be assured, then, that we shall be generous in future as in past times, disdaining the shackles of proportion when called to our free station in the general system of the empire. Because the proposition now made to us involves the interest of all the other colonies, we are now represented in General Congress by members approved by this House, where our former union, it is hoped, will be so strongly cemented that no partial application can produce the slightest departure from the common cause. We consider ourselves as bound in honor as well as interest to share one general fate with our sister colonies, and should hold ourselves base deserters of that union to which we have acceded, were we to agree on any measures distinct and apart from them. To observe that there was indeed a plan of accommodation offered in Parliament, which, though not entirely equal to the terms we had a right to ask, yet differed but in few points from what the General Congress had held out, had Parliament been disposed sincerely as we are to bring about a reconciliation, reasonable men had hoped that by meeting us on this ground something might have been done. Lord Chatham's bill on the one part, and the terms of the Congress on the other, would have formed a basis for negotiation which a spirit of accommodation on both sides might perhaps have reconciled. It came recommended too from one whose successful experience in the art of government should have ensured to it some attention from those to whom it was tendered. He had shown the world that Great Britain with her colonies, united firmly under a just, honest government, formed a power which might bid defiance to the most potent enemies. With a change of ministers, however, a total change of measures took place. The component parts of the empire have from that moment been falling asunder, and a total annihilation of its weight in the political scale of the world seems justly to be apprehended. To declare that these are our sentiments on this important subject, which we offer only as an individual part of the whole empire. Final determination we leave to the General Congress now sitting, before whom we shall lay the papers his lordship has communicated to us. To their wisdom we commit the improvement of this important advance. If it can be wrought into any good, we are assured that they will do it. To them also we refer the discovery of that proper method of representing our well-founded grievances, which his lordship assures us will meet with the attention and regard so justly due to them. For ourselves, we have exhausted every mode of application which our invention could suggest as proper and promising. We have decently remonstrated with Parliament. They have added new injuries to the old. We have wearied our king with supplication. He has not deigned to answer us. We have appealed to the native honor and justice of the British nation. Their efforts in our favor have been hitherto ineffectual. What then remains to be done? What then remains to be done? That we commit our injuries to even-handed justice of that being who doth no wrong, earnestly beseeching him to illuminate the counsels and prosper the endeavors of those whom America hath confided her hopes, that through their wise direction we may again see reunited the blessings of liberty, property, and union with Great Britain. So that's how the letter ends, or the resolution ends. Now let's check out what Lord North's conciliatory proposal was. At the end here, there's a little explanation. It says on 20th of February 1775, Lord North laid before the House of Commons a resolution proposing that whenever any colonial assembly agreed to make a grant for the common defense and the support of civil government in the colony, such grants to be disposable by Parliament, the British government would forbear to impose on that colony any other tax or assessment for these purposes. Now the rest of this sort of talks about the response, drafting the resolutions I just read, and who was supposed to author the resolutions and how they were to be presented. There were a number of discussions. TJ is Thomas Jefferson, I believe. Authorship is stated in the autobiography. So he wrote a draft, and then it was more or less adopted, but not quite. But he can be considered the author of this. I like this one sentence here. I did so, and with his aid carried it through the House with long and doubtful scruples from Mr. Nichols and James Mercer, and a dash of cold water on it here and there, enfeebling it somewhat, but finally, with unanimity or a vote approaching it, this being passed, I repaired immediately to Philadelphia and conveyed to Congress the first notice they had of it. So that's interesting. In one respect, Thomas Jefferson's account is slightly misleading. What he drafted was the resolutions agreed upon in the Committee of the Whole. These, upon being accepted by the House, were put into a form of an address communicated on 12th of June to Dunmore as the definitive answer to his address on the opening day of the session. Thomas Jefferson, having left for Congress on 11th of June, the Burgesses' formal address was presented by Archibald Carey, but inasmuch as the changes between the resolutions and the address were nearly imperceptible, Thomas Jefferson may be credited with the authorship of the latter as well as the former. When the Continental Congress came to prepare an answer to North's proposal, it was Thomas Jefferson who drew up the answer. Okay, so let's walk a little bit. That was interesting. You know, as far as I can tell, the purpose of Lord North's proposal was, he basically said, you know, the colonies didn't want to pay taxes and tariffs, which amount to a tax. They didn't want to pay taxes to the crown because they weren't being defended properly. And so Lord North, from what we just read, I'm realizing he proposed that in Parliament in Britain, he proposed that if the colonies paid the tax, they could get or if they contributed to the common defense of the empire, they then wouldn't have to pay a tax. So it was sort of a trade. It was, you know, the colonies didn't want to pay these crazy taxes that Parliament was requiring of them, so Parliament said, well, all right, if you contribute to the defense of the empire, then you don't have to pay the taxes.